we'd certainly be in favor of that.
Coach, as you approach this draft, this team was obviously decimated with a lot of injuries. When you look at drafting, a lot of times you draft for need, but does depth take on a different perspective this year with the rash of injuries you had?
I don't think we ever anticipate having a year like we had last year, losing Trey and DJ and Mixon and CJ and all those guys, Burrow. So you're never hopeful that that's going to happen and planning for that. Um, so again, we've got a lot of areas of need that we'll address these next couple of weeks, and I'm excited to start that process with free agency and then the draft, which is 50 days away. So again, there's a lot of ways that we can help plug some of the holes that we have on both sides of the ball and create some of that depth that you're talking about.
Thanks.
Zach, does the fact of where the cap was set, you already got some cap room to begin with, but does the fact of where it was set change anything with some other veterans and decisions you may make with them to free up more?
Not at this moment, there's always those options on the table, but I think that we're in a really good position, as well as very few teams in this league are in position right now. And so we feel comfortable with where we're at.
Zach, speaking of Burrow, has he started running above ground or throwing yet?
I don't watch the day-to-day. I know that he's on pace to do all the things that we were hoping he'd do.
So, I mean, he said in that case that he would start. We haven't seen any video of him running or throwing yet. I think he was scheduled to do that in mid-February. So with you saying he's on pace, does that mean he is running and he is throwing?
I haven't seen video either, so I don't quite have the answer to that question, but I know that he's doing really well.
Coach, is there anything that – oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Looking at the guys you have under contract, it's a very different team on paper right now than it was when you I guess started 2 years ago. Just what's your view on that, and what's your reaction to the amount of turnover there has been and maybe could be in the next couple of weeks?
I think it's relatively common, really, if you look at rosters over 3 years, and that there is a higher degree of turnover than people realize. Obviously, there's a lot of guys that have been with us for 2 years now, some 1 year, but what we're really encouraged with the guys that are in this building at the moment. Like being around them all. They got great energy. They've really bought into what we're doing. We'll continue to add those pieces over the next couple of weeks, but really encouraged with the direction of the roster.
Coach, as you look at the draft this year compared to the pandemic versus normal, has anything emerged that you said, you know what, this really works well, and even after the pandemic, we'll incorporate this into how we approach the draft? Has anything emerged from that?
Well, I think the use of Zooms, as we've all encountered, has been helpful, because previously you'd see the guy at the combine, you'd see him at his pro day, maybe take him to dinner, make a phone call, a couple phone calls to him. Now you're face-to-face, talking through video with them during the interviews, things that we probably had at our disposal before, but we didn't realize it. Now that you do, you can find some information some other ways. Obviously, I don't think anything's ever a substitute for being able to see a guy face-to-face and talk to him and get a better feel for him personally. But again, the use of Zoom in terms of interviewing players has been productive for us.
Thanks.
How about the re-signing Brandon Allen today at quarterback?
Yeah, I'm happy we got that done. Brandon's a guy that we've got a high degree of confidence in. So to come back in that quarterback room was important for us to get done. So I'm glad it worked out.
Coach, with the salary cap, declining, and not all teams able to participate in free agency because some are in cap jail. Looking at potential free agents, I mean, guys that might be out there in the market that maybe nobody anticipated would be out there in the market. Are any of those potential names exciting you guys?
I think there's other options that are out there, to fill some of the needs that we have. Again, we're in a good position to be flexible as the week goes. Nobody can really say how it's all going to shape out. So we're going to be in a position, to add some really quality players that help us be a better football team next year.
How many pro days will you go to this year, maybe compared to a normal year? Will you be more in the mix there just because of no combine and things like that?
Our guys, you're only allowed 3 at each one. So oftentimes the one I went to, we usually had 3, 4, 5 guys. There's a couple I've got penciled in that I'll go to. We are flexible in that regard week to week as well, as things pop up and you want to get on the road. So I'll go to a couple of them. We've got our staff is already on the road, our scouts, our coaches, they've already been out there. So we're going to hit as many as we can.
You mentioned how the dinners with the prospects are off the table, but have restrictions relaxed enough where you can do some of the other type of vetting? We're talking to coaches and other people involved face to face as opposed to over Zooms to get a better idea about some of these guys.
When you're at the pro days, you're saying?
Yeah, at pro days.
Yeah, they just got kicked off early on Friday, I think was the first one. So I haven't been there to see how that unfolded, but I think just like anything, you can talk to coaches and people you got relationships with, but they want to make sure that your exposure to the players is really non-existent. You're there, but you got your mask on, you're away from them on the field, and they want to make sure that they protect the players as best possible.
Coach, I was wondering how many quarterbacks are you going to take into camp given Joe's situation, and is Finley one of them with the signing of Allen?
Probably 3 to 4. That really changes throughout the year. Just based on last year, the number you were able to take to camp was lower than the 90-man. And so we'll wait to see how all that shakes out. The number is 3 to 4. I've done it both over the last 8-9 years. So we'll kind of play that by ear as the draft comes around. And if there's a quality guy there that you want to take as the 4th guy, that's always an option. Finley's certainly here, and he's done some great things for us. So, again, there's a lot of decisions we got to make as a team as these next couple weeks come up.
Zach, when it comes to the offensive line, how much have you weighed bringing in a veteran guy that can come in right away and really fit in well in the offensive line and free agency versus maybe a guy that you draft who is young? How much do you want to address that and have a guy that can come in and be ready right away?
Yeah, number one, we got to play better up front this year than we did last year. And so when you do bring in a veteran guy, he's got the experience in the league and he can come right in. And sometimes you take younger guys and they got maybe a higher ceiling, more potential. So you just got to weigh both of them as they come at you. Again, we'll be flexible to make those decisions as things shake out next week and going into the draft. And you got to weigh them both hand in hand. But I'm confident we'll make some good decisions there.
Zach, Duke hinted that Jonah Williams, asked him about left tackle, and he said Jonah Williams was a guy that they saw flashes of, that y'all saw flashes of, that can be there moving forward. Regardless of what happens at the draft, do you plan on keeping Jonah at left tackle?
Yes, I thought he made a lot of improvement in the games that he got to play last year. Again, everybody's got to be flexible with what pieces are available to you. And so you can never say anything set in stone, but I'm very comfortable with Jonah at left tackle. I think he made some really solid improvements there from game to game. And we're excited him getting back there at that piece next year.
When you went back and evaluated just last season as a whole, did you have any takeaways on the offensive line play in particular?
Well, I've mentioned flexibility several times over the course of the Zoom. That's something that they had to do in that room last year, mainly due to injuries. Guys had to play several positions on short notice oftentimes. They battled, But if we're going to go to where we need to go as an offense, then, we need 5 pieces in place that can play together, develop that chemistry with one another. So I am grateful for those guys, how they fought, man. I mean, it's some guys that you got a lot of respect for that came in there and did what they could do for us. And so, but again, that's an area we got to solidify this offseason.
Zach, how often do you communicate with Joe Mixon, and is his foot fully healthy now?
Yeah, Joe's good. He's working out. I know he feels really good right now. Communicate with him, off and on, probably every week, every other week. But always enjoy talking to Joe, just touching base with where he's at.
You've got some new coaches on your staff. So obviously they bring different things to the table in your initial meetings that you've had. Do you feel like these new guys are going to bring things that you like to the table?
Yeah, it's a real, start on sorry, I'm getting some feedback there. Marion Hobby on defense with the defensive line. He's got great experience in this league. Really was a natural fit with our defensive staff when we interviewed him. Had heard great things about him from people that we knew. So happy to get him in the building. Frank Polk obviously has a proven resume. Really enjoyed working with Frank these last couple months. So really excited to get him in the building. And then Justin Hill, our running back coach coming from Tulsa, really fits what we do on offense, the staff we have. He's got great energy. He's going to work really hard. Did a great job there at Tulsa the last 7 or 8 years. So really excited to bring those 3 guys to the building. And so far they've done a great job.
When it comes to free agency, Zach, do you have to sell or recruit at all, or is it strictly dollars and cents in the NFL?
I certainly think the money talks, but I think I know that players see what we have going on here, and that we've got some great young pieces, particularly guys that people want to play with. And they can see, we've had some struggles these last 2 years. There's no doubt about it, but the future is very bright. There's a ton of potential on this team. I know that people are going to want to be a part of this. And, so I'm excited to be here. These coaches are excited to be here. The players we got in the building are excited, and people are going to feel that energy outside and want to be a part of this thing.
Zac, how important is fit when you look at free agency and you look at the draft, fitting in your system or Lou's system to making things work as you enter year 3?
You certainly do have to take into account if a guy was playing and productive in a different system, how does that translate to what we do on offense and defense? And you always want to make sure you got a great vision for how they're going to fit in your schemes. Great players, oftentimes you want to fit things you do around them as well. If you think that they can come in and be productive, and you got to be flexible with how you use them. That's certainly something you weigh too. But those are conversations, James, that we do have every day about it. Free agents, draft picks, guys that we'd be looking to add to our roster. How do they fit? Is it the right fit, or maybe they're a better fit somewhere else?
Coach, Zac, I promise I'm not trying to bait you into saying you're taking a wide receiver first, but I am curious, knowing that you have Joe Burrow and that you played quarterback in your offensive mind, how enticing is adding another wide receiver who can take the top off and be so dynamic for this offense? How enticing is that option?
I think there's a lot of ways that we can help our offense and help Joe. You're talking about a guy who came in with no offseason, no preseason games, and really was starting to take off and take full command and ownership of the offense those last 5 games in particular that he was playing. I know the whole team felt the energy with him that he could take us some really great things. And so to be able to add things that can help, whether that's up front, whether that's at receiver, whether that's adding guys on defense that help keep the point totals down on defense and allow us to do some better things on offense as well. You got to take all those options as they come at you with whatever pick it is, 5th pick, whatever. We got to be flexible as this thing goes, and just excited to help our team in any way we can.
Just to follow up on what Jeremy asked, what do you feel the wide receiver room needs, and what traits are you looking for there?
Well, I think that we have a talented room, and really we've got good depth there. Adding another piece is never off the table. When you're talking to a guy that calls plays, you always like to have as many weapons as possible. But again, we got to do what's best for a football team, however that shakes out. Could be a number of positions for us.
Zac, how beneficial is it to be able to ask Joe or T or any of your players on your roster about different draft prospects that they played with in college?
Yep, it's helpful. We've got guys that have played some great programs, Clemson, Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, so we've got those resources there at a lot of the places that have a lot of the prospects coming out. It's always fun to get their opinions. Obviously our scouts do a ton of the work, and they get great information, and that's always our starting point. But sometimes it is good to be able to ask an opinion of some guys that have played with some of these other guys.
Do you expect any in-person training camp?
You kind of broke up there, Dan. Can you give me that one?
Do you expect any in-person activity before training camp this year?
I'm certainly hopeful. I don't have any expectations at the moment. We haven't received any sort of word on what it's going to look like, but I'm always hopeful that we can get some time on the grass with these guys before training camp hits.
Zach, in terms of different positions, the drafts, or obviously the draft's going to hinge on what you do in free agency, but in free agency and the draft, is there depth at multiple positions? I know the wide receiver class is pretty deep. You can get good wide receivers through the first 5 rounds. Is it the same for offensive linemen? Is it a pretty deep draft overall in terms of what guys are thinking at this stage?
Initially it looks like it's a good group of quarterbacks there as well. I know we're not in the market for where these guys are going to be. I'm hesitant to say that, Dave, because, even as yesterday and today hit, you watch more guys and do more work on some of the film evaluations of some of these other positions, and guys pop up that really catch your attention as you do more. So I think in March, it's very early in the draft process. Over the next 30 days, you get a much better feel for what the depth of the draft is going to bring, in rounds 3 through 5. And so there's often guys, the more work you do on them, the more they bubble up maybe, or bubble down one way or another. So I don't yet feel comfortable, putting out there my thoughts on the depth of certain positions, but there's a lot of good players that have been fun to watch so far.
In your mind, what would be the more ideal situation where 4 quarterbacks go off the board, you get your choice of whoever you want, or maybe there's multiple quarterbacks available at 5 and your phone's ringing off the hook with a chance to move back and get more picks?
It either way works well for us, So, unfortunately, I don't like how we got there, but we're in a good spot in the draft to make some good decisions on draft day.
Zach, y'all were really aggressive last offseason. I mean, do you feel like you guys need to be aggressive again this offseason in order to be competitive for a playoff berth this season?
I don't know if aggressive is the right word. I think we're in a good position to really add some quality players, however that shakes out. And so again, I think we've made smart decisions. That's why our cap is in the position that we're in right now, so that we can be flexible as this thing has dropped down, and maybe some teams don't have the same flexibility we do. So again, just we got more work to do this week certainly, but I'm excited to see what next week brings.
Last year was kind of the first real, targeted, calculated move into free agency for you guys. I mean, you guys spent a lot of money and worked really hard on that. What did you learn from that last year that maybe you feel like you're taking into this year as far as how to approach it, and maybe some lessons that can help you even be more efficient this year?
It doesn't always play out how you might envision it, and so again, it's an hour by hour thing once free agency hits. And so you have to be thorough with your discussions leading up beforehand, which we did last year, which we did this year. So again, we feel really good about our communication, the position we're in, to be able to make sound decisions as the week takes shape.
Coach, you brought a culture here that's a little bit different than preceded you, and players have been buying in. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jesse Bates, we're all talking about they like what you're doing. And when J.J. Watt was a free agent, Tyler Boyd quickly went to social media advocating for you. How does it feel to know that these guys truly do believe in what you're doing, and without hesitation or telling other guys, hey, this is the place to be?
Well, we've got the right players in the building. But again, we think we're doing things the right way. Now, the wins need to come with that. There's no doubt about that. So, but again, we know that by building a foundation, that stuff's going to come more naturally. We're now in year 3 of our systems in all 3 phases. Our guys feel comfortable with what we're asking them to do. Now they can take the details to the next step. The football character in this building is tremendous right now. And now the young leadership that we've had, and we've got a lot of good veteran leaders on this team as well, is really going to take shape over this next year, where guys' voices become a little bit louder, and guys that are doing things the right way with a ton of talent to back it up, guys are going to listen to them. So I'm excited to see, some of these younger guys really take that next step and be more vocal next year and help lead some of these other players.
Zach, based on last year's experience of, going out and getting Trey Waynes, DJ Reader, tagging AJ, and maybe not getting a huge bang for the buck, are there any residual battle scars after, deciding to go the way you went?
I don't think so. And I look at it as, we're getting some reinforcements next year that unfortunately we didn't get to have last year. Getting to see Trey Waynes out there and DJ Reader play more than he played last year in those couple games he played. So it's exciting that we added some pieces of free agency last year that we were really counting on that for whatever reason didn't play out this year. We get them back next year. And so those are some pieces we didn't get to deal with last year.
As a coach that's trying to obviously win games in 2021, is it hard to balance the future cap and concern about that when you're probably pushing for as many players as you can over the next few weeks?
Well, we want to win now. There's no doubt about that. But you got to be smart and make sure that we've managed for the future the right way, and I feel like we're going to do that.
2 more minutes.
Coach, with bringing in Frank, what exactly are you trying to improve in the run game? What do you with his hiring? What are you looking to emphasize to make it better?
We just need to be better on offense overall. Run game, pass protection, and that's all of us. That's unfortunately some guys got struck with injuries last year, and that's no fun. But so we just need consistency overall. Frank's got great experience in this league. He's been a part of some really successful offenses, some great run games. He's passionate about his beliefs, and so we're excited to get him in the building.
Zach, what are the conversations like with Burrow as he's trying to come back? And how are you? What's the coaching aspect of that like as you're trying to get him ready for potentially week 1?
Well, you can't really deal with the players in that regard right now. So they're all very casual, general conversations, just to check on their well-being. But the scheme stuff will come once the offseason program starts.
Talked about Joe Burrow and his knee injury. What about Trey Hopkins? He injured his later in the season, torn ACL as well. Is he coming along pretty well schedule-wise?
Yeah, he's on schedule, on pace, great attitude. So things seem to be going well with Trey.
Hey, Zac, as someone who embraces analytics fully and an organization that has a lot of experience with ties and overtime, I'm just curious what you think of the Ravens' spot and choose option for overtime.
I need to do more research exactly how that's going to play out. But I'm always open to seeing some creative approaches, and sometimes it doesn't always come into effect the first year. Maybe there's some holes poked in it and it gets ironed out over the years to come. But I think it starts good conversations, and we'll just see where it goes.
One more question.
Zac, I'm curious your thoughts on, there's been talk about pushing back the hiring cycle into later in the year. Obviously, that was significant when you were brought in here. Is that something that you would be in favor for in the future, or what did you kind of learn from that process that you feel like your voice might be important for the league to hear?
I don't know that I have strong opinions on that because I've seen it play out both ways, good and bad for organizations, for coaches in general. So I'll probably not share any opinion that I have because I don't necessarily have a strong one right now. But again, probably a good conversation to have on both sides of it.
All right, Coach, we'll let you go. Thanks for your time.
Thank you all.